I'm not alone. Josh Nelson's here. We're going to talk about the White Sox on the CHGO White Sox podcast next. The CHGO White Sox podcast presented to you by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary with our friends over at Bet365. Sign up using code CHGO365 when you sign up. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me, Josh Nelson of Sox Machine. You can follow him at SoxMachine_Josh. Our producer today, Joey Christopoulos. We're going to be talking about being allowed inside guaranteed rate field as media. We'll talk about the dismissals of Ethan Katz, Marcus Thames, and others from the White Sox coaching staff. We'll talk also about the 2026 offseason project plan. I have 0.1 ready. I have bolded the names that I think will be in there. I think I have 14 of the 26 filled out. We'll talk mainly budget stuff.
Yeah.
You know, how high can I actually spend, Josh? You know, what's realistic for people when they're putting together their plans? First of all, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to be back.
I think second time, third time?
I forgot.
Yeah, we've had you on before, and this is, I think you're the second person or the first person to ever come into the studio at least twice.
Okay,
so
awesome.
You're making a great effort there. Excited to have you on, and you can obviously check out Josh, Jim, and James over at SoxMachine.com. I am a subscriber over at the $5 tier. Make sure you go support their great work, and make sure that we keep having James Fegan at the ballpark. Anything specific about membership that you want to push? Give a little plug.
Right now we're doing an annual sale. So if you get a discount right now if you go to SoxMachine.com/products and sign up for an annual subscription. We got some travel coming up. We're sending James to Las Vegas for the general manager meetings. That's going to be in November, November 10th to the 12th. We are planning to be in Orlando for the winter meetings in mid-December. It could be a busy off season. Let me put it this way, Sean. We are going to be busy this off season. How busy in terms of scale? It may not be grand. It still may feel like busy work, but there's a lot to cover for the White Sox as they made a lot of work for themselves yesterday. Now having to hire many coaches to fill out not only their coaching staff, but they also got to figure out what they're doing in AAA. And they got a lot of holes on the roster that they'll need to address, both the GM and winter meetings. So they'll be busy.
It might not be expensive, but they'll be busy doing a lot of stuff. I referred to it last year. Chris Getz, working on the undercarriage of the organization.
Yeah.
Coaching staff a little bit more out there and in front. Were you surprised by the dismissal of Katz, Thames, Sergio, Santos? One specifically, none at all. What'd you take away from yesterday's news?
Katz a little bit, only because I thought he had a good working relationship with Brian Bannister, the director of pitching for the Chicago White Sox. And Sergio Santos, we heard through our contacts at Sox Machine that Santos was planning on applying for an MLB coaching job because no MLB team hires a AAA manager to be the next manager. If you want to be a future MLB manager, you got to be part of an MLB coaching staff. So Sergio Santos understood that, and he'd be applying for any job that was available. I think from Sergio's standpoint, and Scott Merkin of MLB.com was able to talk to Sergio and post some of the quotes yesterday on social media, and even our James Fegan getting to chat with Sergio a little bit, surprised that the White Sox are not going to give him that opportunity since they created those opportunities, maybe even be a first base coach because the White Sox have that opening. And it appeared that Sergio had a good working relationship with the players on hand. But this is a lot of holdover from the Pedro Grifol era. Ethan Katz been under multiple managers, if you think about it. Tony La Russa, Miguel Cairo, Pedro Grifol, Grady Sizemore, and Will Venable. So even though Ethan Katz was here, Sean, 2021, he was the pitching coach for 5 different managers. We've been talking about 5 different managers for the White Sox in the last 5 seasons.
Yeah, Don Cooper was here for like 30 years. I think he was probably only under like 7.
Yeah, so there you go. The White Sox no longer loyal. They're going to move on that.
Well, the one thing, and I know, there's so many guys that talk about that got, non-renewed. Maybe this person, just got a 2-year contract because they were elevated from AAA manager to that third base position. But Justin Jerschley still here. Were you surprised that it wasn't like a full cleaning of house and that there is still some people left on this bench? Sizemore not completely kicked out, offered a lower level. I guess, are you surprised by Justin Jerschley still being around?
I don't know what his contract situation is. If his contract was like everybody else's and up for renewal, I guess I would be a little bit surprised that they held on to him. But this is a lot of churn, Sean. So now it's Will Venable and Chris Getz. I imagine Josh Barfield, Gene Watson, who knows everyone and anyone in Major League Baseball, will be able to compile as far as a list of candidates, and I'm sure they'll be busy. But for White Sox fans, I think we should set the expectation. I don't imagine all of the entire coaching staff will be hired by the GM meetings in November. This could carry over to December because at the winter meetings in Orlando, it does give you more of an opportunity to continue to do interviews. If you really want to wait to interview coaches that are currently on MLB staffs in the postseason, like if you want to go interview someone from the Cubs, they're not available right now because they're in the playoffs. So I could see being a little bit of a delay in knowing who is all hired because there's not a rush, but if you want to get the best people, there's kind of a rush, if that makes sense. So this could be, it's not going to be next week we're going to know who the replacements are.
Yeah, I think for just reference, last year when Vinny and Herb were here, we did our show saying the coaching staff has been somewhat finalized, or we have an idea that, Katz and Timms was coming back. That was around Black Friday. So, early December-ish, maybe we'll have an idea of what this coaching staff could look like. And that was, too, going to what Jerschley said, or Jerschley's contract. I think that's what happened was, Katz's 2-year contract likely ran up, and it was signed when Pedro was still the manager. Same with Timms. And I said this 10 months ago. It seemed like Will Venable was in no rush to become a manager. It seemed like he waited for his opportunity. And because this team really doesn't have expectations until 2027, he could take that year to coach with guys that might not be on his coaching staff in 2027, save the team money, and just get acclimated to being a manager. Do you think he acclimated well to being a manager? Like, are you surprised they're rocking the boat after a 19-win improvement?
Yeah, I'm not surprised because it's not his guys, right? He only got to pick his bench coach, Walker McKibben.
Right.
That's it. So I'm curious on who he'll be targeting now this offseason and just how collaborative of an effort it is. But I feel more confident with Will Venable than Pedro Grifol. Venable is steady. He doesn't get too high. He doesn't get too low. And I do think that his lead by empathy has connected with this young core. I do think it's important for the White Sox to find some veteran leadership to help, because now these young players, they get a little taste and they've had success. They're putting a lot of expectation on themselves going into next season. You could use, now that Michael A. Taylor's retired, you could use someone like a Michael A. Taylor to bring into your clubhouse, either that's a starter or a bench guy, just to make sure that the young guys get acclimated still to the life in the major leagues and how to deal with expectations, because that's the next task, especially for someone like Colson Montgomery.
Right. I could see Martin Perez being back. There was just, even spring training before this year, he was like, no, this is going to be a great year. And he seemed all hyped up to be a leader. And, even with the injuries, it still felt like he could be, a part of the mix in 26.
Let's see where that left arm is.
Yeah. But hey, for $5 million, they're not spending much. We'll see if he's able to bounce back healthily. Do you have any concern over McKinnon possibly being poached? I saw Minnesota and their managerial job opening, and I was like, I could see it.
I don't know. That is a good question. At this moment, I'm not overly concerned. I think it's going to be the teams that are in the playoffs right now, like George Lombard, who's the bench coach of the Detroit Tigers. I mean, how long, Sean, have we been talking about or hearing about George Lombard being a candidate for managerial spots?
I think when Tony La Russa was hired.
Exactly, right?
Like,
so it's
two White Sox cycles.
It's been many years. So does Lombard become a viable candidate for the Minnesota Twins job? Do they go back to the well of just hiring ex-Twins players like they did with Paul Molitor?
Torrey Hunter's in the
Torrey Hunter is
for
out
the Angels
there.
job apparently. Yeah,
exactly. So I don't know about the Twins, but there's so much churn right now on the managerial front, and there could even be more after this postseason, depending on how the playoffs go. Like if the Yankees fall flat on their face, does Aaron Boone get fired? I'm not too concerned about McKibben right now, but in a couple years it could be because that's the natural progression line, promotion line, is to go from bench coach to manager.
When we look at the pitching coach and hitting coach positions, how important are those for the Sox when you have a Brian Bannister and Ryan Fuller in place? Because I think we saw a massive jump when it comes to the second half of this team locking in on the fastball. And I would assume that's coming from Ryan Fuller's direction and is trickling down through Venable to Thames. It feels like they can at least have someone possibly even better, teach this philosophy to the hitter. That's why you're changing a hitting coach. But, when fans complain, oh, you got to change Ethan Katz. I think Herb was upset that, you're bringing a guy that lost 2 straight 100-loss seasons back as a pitching coach. Now you would have been bringing him back after 3 straight seasons. Does it matter that much now that you have directors of pitching and hitting?
It does, because those two are constantly traveling. And I can say that the White Sox are rebooting, probably starting from scratch, their efforts in Asia. So the White Sox are going to be investing this offseason in more scouts and try to establish better connections and relationships both with the Japanese and Korean leagues. That requires Bannister and Fuller to go to those countries and start finding scouts that they could work with to identify possible targets for the White Sox. They can't always be in Chicago. Fuller's all over the place. Fuller was at the University of Tennessee during Billy Carlson's tryout, and we heard that was a big factor in the White Sox taking Billy Carlson in the first round of this past MLB draft. What's important is for Bannister and Fuller to work with coaches that they can have open dialogue and what their level of thinking is that will help with particular players as far as adjustments and techniques is translated. And there's no friction, that everybody is still on the same page. It's a collaborative effort. There's going to be pushing back as far as push and pull, I should say, when it comes to feedback, but they have a good working relationship. The other important thing is that the White Sox are continuing to add more technology, the trajectory machine for the hitting, especially at home. They're moving and installing more technology at the spring training facility in Arizona. If you want to be the next White Sox hitting and pitching coach, you need to have not only the understanding, but the experience having worked with this technology, especially with either high-level minor league players or with current major league players, and be able to translate and have the knowledge of how these advanced metrics and what the technology is telling you about to help improve as far as the players. This is totally different than somebody like Eric Thames, who had experience with the New York Yankees, and you bring him over because he has experience as a hitting coach. That experience is fine and dandy, but the White Sox are trying to be more modern, Sean, and I think that's going to be, if the White Sox decide to hire the next hitting and pitching coach, I think that's going to be a big factor that we hear is their experience using this technology.
Yeah, and I'm thrilled for it. We talked last year about that $500,000 batting machine, and you can see it in the Sean Evans first pitch video. They have him take cuts. I think he picked Glass now to go up against. Like it replicates spin, it replicates release point. Like it tries to give you a true look of what this pitcher will look like. To unlock that would be great. It's not just Jake Berger's iPitch machine anymore. They have actual machines out there. Do you think there needs to be that phantom thread that connects Ryan Fuller to the next hitting coach, or Brian Bannister to the next pitching coach, like Ethan Katz and Bannister previously working in San Francisco? Or will it just be anyone who has played before that has knowledge of that technology?
I think it's anyone, maybe not even played before, but anyone that has worked with that type of technology. That's why I'm curious in who the White Sox are going to be targeting, both with the hitting and pitching coaches. It may not be an ex-player that the White Sox hire. So when we get these names, and obviously we'll be following up on their backgrounds and learning more about these candidates when we hear through the grapevine that they're applying or they're targets by the White Sox for these jobs. But they probably had past relationships with Bannister, maybe with San Francisco and Boston, Ryan Fuller, of course, with Baltimore. but I don't think that's going to be necessary in who the White Sox target.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to follow. Obviously, Sox Machine will have more on that as it develops. I'll try to follow it and make a list as best as I can. Jordan Lazowski over at Sox on 35th also put out a list of 10 names that he liked for the pitching coaching staff. So, check that out as well. Donnie Ecker seems to be the most apparent name that could come over.
He did
formerly worked with
He applied
Venable
for the
and
White
Rangers.
Sox managerial job.
Was a part of the interviewing search with Venable. Didn't get it, and then returned to Texas and got fired a month or so in. Right.
Yeah.
So maybe Donnie Ecker, but maybe not. We'll take a break here on the CHGO White Sox podcast. Josh Nelson will be back with us after the break, but first, okay. All right, whatever. Anyways, we want to let you know about our friends over at Bet365. We'll do it live. We want to let you know about our friends over at Bet365, the place to be betting football this season, whether it's NFL or college football. You're a winner if your team goes up by 17 points with an instant payout on straight bets and parlay selections marked as winners. So download the app and use code CHGO365 when you sign up. When you do use that code, when you bet $5, your first bet of $5, you get $200 in bonus bets, whether that bet of $5 wins or loses. You got Thursday Night Football coming up. You get a $10 safety net bet on a same-game parlay. You could double your winnings on parlays with Bet365's 100% parlay boost. Again, download the app. Use code CHGO365 when you sign up. Bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets, whether that first bet of $5 wins or loses. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, crisis counseling and referral services can be accessed by calling 1-800-GAMBLER in-app only. We also want to let you know about our friends over at RC. I'm drinking the zero sugar variety. Soft drinks used to have some kick, right? Now they're just soft. Now they're about pretty colors and easy fizz. RC Cola is not a soft drink, just damn good cola. It's the original cola that doesn't fold under pressure. That's why when you walk into the original Chicago pizzerias, you see RC in the fridge. Whether it's zero sugar or not, there's no trends, no gimmicks, no glow-ups. RC hasn't changed its stripes since 1905 because it didn't need to. It's the same bold, crisp flavor that it's always been, and it tastes like a punch in the thirst. Do you like that tagline?
Punch in the thirst.
A punch in the thirst.
I love RC.
RC's pretty good.
Great.
We'll give you some as you walk out. Stock up for all your end of summer parties, back to school celebrations, or just watching the game. RC is the move for whatever you're doing. Back here on the CHGO White Sox podcast. Anything else on the coaching staff? I feel like we covered most of it. It's just too early to tell, really.
It's too early to tell, and there could be more coaching staff bloodbath. I am curious what's going to happen in San Francisco because if Bruce Bochy does take that Giants job, who knows who San Francisco could be adding. We've heard that maybe the Giants would be interested in a reunion with Ethan Katz. I don't think Ethan's going to get a job somewhere. He's the one that I'm confident that he'll latch on to another team. But we'll see how many more jobs open up around Major League Baseball.
Yeah, and I was a little bit surprised by Baldelli. You brought up Boone. I think I'd be surprised by that. But, I mean, now seeing Rocco get fired, I'm not. I think it could happen to anyone.
I don't know what's going on in Minneapolis. I really don't. They are an enigma.
Well, kind of leads into our next segue. You asked Brooks Boyer, because we got invited to the Sunday podcast event on the Sox last home game. You got to sit down with Brooks Boyer as I did. You asked him about Justin Ishbia, though.
Yeah.
I didn't. What question did you ask and what response did you get?
Well, the question had to deal with how does Justin Ishbia's capital investment impact as far as the White Sox stadium plans. For those that don't know, the White Sox plans at Project 78 are dead. The Chicago Fire got their approval from the city council. The Chicago Fire will have shovels in the dirt this fall/winter. They are building that privately financed stadium at Project 78. The reason why Project 78 is dead for the White Sox is that the alderman for that ward, this deal and this financing and the approval is contingent on only one professional sports stadium, not two. If some reason Related Midwest wanted to go back and try to add the White Sox, they would have to start completely over. Sean, you lived in Chicago for a while. I have lived in Chicago for a while. We know how aldermen get. We know how the city council gets. Whenever you get city approval, that's it. Mm-hmm. You don't go back.
Right.
Okay, you got the approval, just run now.
And how many renderings have we seen of the 78, right? Like, they finally got something there. Related Midwest has been trying to build something there for like 13 years.
Yes.
They're glad that something's been approved.
So it's been approved. That's the plan. The White Sox are not moving to Project 78. So what is going to happen for the White Sox? And Brooks Boyer did tell me the next 12 to 18 months are crucial for the White Sox in regards to what they do at the stadium. It's the first time, speaking to other people within the White Sox, I am hearing a restructure of the current stadium is a possibility. The possibility of maybe building a new stadium at the original home of Comiskey Park across the street at Lot B. The White Sox may not be leaving Bridgeport.
Right.
The White Sox could leave Bridgeport. There is an option for the 2030 season to play at Rate Field, and the White Sox can activate that option to kick the can down the road one more season. But we will have more clarity the next 12 to 18 months. But I did ask Brooks Boyer, is this where Justin Ishbia's capital investment comes into play? Because how weird would it be, Sean? Let's say you see a plot of land and you're thinking, I'm going to build my dream home there. But the guy who owns that plot of land's like, hold on, I'll build that dream home for you. And when I am no longer the owner of the land, I will hand over this house to you that I built for you. Now, you're probably thinking, I have money, I'll build my own damn house.
Right.
Justin
He owns
Ishbia,
all of Winnetka.
right? Justin Ishbia's got a lot of money. He can build his own damn stadium. So this is where I think that Justin Ishbia is going to have a lot of say in where the White Sox are going to be. Brooks Boyer's had multiple conversations with Justin Ishbia. You can't just build a new stadium for a future owner and have zero insight from that new owner. So that is an area where I think Justin Ishbia's got a lot to say in the future home of the Chicago White Sox.
How surprised are you by this whole Ishbia thing now that it's even just happened? Looking back on the 2025 season, I think Colson's surprise kind of took us over, but even that playing out where Ishbia was pursuing the Minnesota Twins, abandoning it, we thought, if anything, it would be Dave Stewart taking the Sox to Nashville, and now it's turned out to Ishbia. Does it feel real? Because, I mean, still, it might not feel real until the 2029, 2034 seasons when Ishbia can fully take over as owner. Is seeing him behind home plate enough?
I'm guessing. I'm guessing this transition happens before 2029.
Yeah.
So the 2034, no. I think this happens no later than 2029 that Ishbia takes over as the chairman of the Chicago White Sox. I think, so I'll tell you a story. The winter meetings last year in Dallas, Texas, I'm sitting there at the MLB Draft lottery watching the chaos unfold. And I'm standing next to Dan Hayes, who covers the Minnesota Twins of The Athletic. And Dan Hayes was absolutely crushing last offseason all of the ownership talks and what was going on for the Minnesota Twins. And we were talking about Justin Ishbia. And Dan, from his sources and his reporting at the time, publicly and privately, was thinking, yeah, he's going to take over the Minnesota Twins. They really think that this is going to get done. Well, then it doesn't get done. Justin has either a change of mind or a change of heart. And look at what happened to the Minnesota Twins. They are in complete disarray. They really do need to sell, but then we found out how many millions upon millions of dollars that they're in debt. It's absolutely crazy. That's probably why Justin pulled out of buying them, because it's $400 million in debt. The White Sox don't carry that level of debt, and he does not need to fly to Minneapolis and Chicago all the time, because to your point, he owns half of Winnetka. It's a lot closer to go to the south side of Chicago.
If he just keeps buying more of the lake too, it'll just get closer and closer.
He can take a ferry all the way
Make
down.
a train in the middle of his house that connects to the red line.
Exactly. So I think we're all still in a waiting period of what is going to happen when the Jerry Reinsdorf era ends as the Chicago White Sox chairman and transitions over to Justin Ishbia. We get a lot of clues, though, from what his brother has been doing with the Phoenix Suns. I'm expecting a lot of changes. I don't expect the White Sox to operate the way that they always have. So that means all of us, no matter how long you've been covering the White Sox, we all kind of have to shed everything that we've ever known the White Sox have done and embrace this new era. Sometimes when sports owners change hands, it goes really well, and it's a big boom for both the team and the fan base. Sometimes it gets worse. In baseball, look at the Miami Marlins, as an example. So time will tell. But I think he's got to have a huge say, right? Because it's going to be his team. And again, I use that analogy. It'd be really weird for Jerry Reinsdorf to tell Justin Ishbia, don't worry about a new stadium. I'll take care of that for you. Well, what happens if Justin doesn't like your idea?
Yeah, right. Well, and two, I think, Jerry, I don't know how real this is, but I found this from 2011. He told ESPN that he wants to be at the 100th anniversary of the All-Star game in 2033. So having a new stadium for that makes sense, right? Like, is all he wants, at some point just to have the Chicago White Sox hosting the 2033 All-Star game. And even if he's not the owner, right, he'll just be happy with it. Like, I don't know what's going to end up happening, but hopefully Ishbia comes in sooner rather than later. And you bring up too, new ownership. Even with the Ishbias, he brought in a ton of money with the Phoenix Suns. The team started playing terribly, and there's a ton of mess, like PR-wise, for the team too. So hopefully at least Justin keep a tighter ship than Matt has in Phoenix. I don't want to talk too much about the stadium. I do want to get a little bit to CHSn and something Brooks Boyer said to me, and then how that reflects on the offseason project plan. But with the Bears moving to Arlington, just because it will be an open plot of land, do you think the White Sox have any ability or chance to possibly move to the current site of Soldier Field?
My recommendation to anyone in the city of Chicago is just leave that stadium alone. You have to deal with Friends of the Parks. You have to deal with the Chicago Park District. You have so much empty asphalt in Bridgeport, and you just have one organization that you have tremendous leverage and power over as a state agency. Just deal with them. Don't deal with the Parks District or Friends of the Park. Let that be Chicago's largest outdoor concert venue.
Yes, the shots from outside the stadium would look fantastic, but at the end of the day, it's still going to look like a pitcher's mound and a home plate. And it is a gigantic headache, and it's a ton of money too. And I don't know if it's exactly what led to the poll ads being into $400 million worth of debt building Target Field, but it is a way to save money if you just have a ballpark that's, I think, perfectly fine. Yeah, I don't think there's really anything wrong with Wright Field.
They can make some adjustments. Yeah. There's some things that they can do to modernize. They could add more gates, but I have spoken to politicians in Chicago, and whether the White Sox like it or not, those parking lots are not always going to stay as parking lots. The state and the city can change its mind, and then the White Sox could lose parking lots for other development projects, because housing is a big need right now in Bridgeport with the sprawl from Chinatown coming further south. You could take over a couple of those parking lots and start building brand new homes because it is a need for the neighborhood. So changes are going to be coming to the stadium, whether the White Sox like it or not. You should be proactive. That would be my recommendation to the White Sox, and formulating a plan that works both locally and statewide.
Yeah, hopefully I think it just incorporates the current, Comiskey 2 design, because it's fine. It's like a giant mall. It doesn't have too much character, but the food's good. And if the baseball is good, that's all that matters. Brooks told me, and I'm assuming he said something along the lines, he was like, I bet you've chronicled our new TV network and how we're no longer getting this money from NBC, how we need to make this effort, the TV channel, work so then we can reinvest into the team. How concerning is that to you, hearing that notion? Because I think from what we can tell, CHSN isn't really raking it in right now. I don't think it really shows that in 2026 the team will have a ton of money to spend on free agents.
This is going to be the biggest topic coming up to the offseason for all Major League Baseball teams, because Rob Manfred has made it publicly known it is the league's goal to bring in all local TV deals under the league's direction. So what does that look like? Do we all have to sign up for yearly subscriptions to Amazon Prime or ESPN? Time will tell. But Major League Baseball wants to handle all local TV deals and spread the money out evenly to all 30 teams. Clearly, the Dodgers and Yankees will hate this idea. But as we just recently saw, the Seattle Mariners have shut down Root Sports. They shut down their regional sports network, and they folded into Major League Baseball. So that's another MLB team that has signed over their local TV money and the local TV operations to Major League Baseball. We're almost half the league already, Sean.
Right. I think it's 7 of 30 right now or something like that.
I think it's going to be close to 15 now heading into 2026. So I think the White Sox it feels like Major League Baseball is zagging and the White Sox are zigging. And I don't know if they have the popularity or the product on the field to think that they're in the same boat as the Yankees and Dodgers or even the Chicago Cubs when it comes to TV. But if this is going to be the final way that local TV works for Major League Baseball, is that it's under league control in 2028, I think for CHSN and for the White Sox and whatever they get locally for TV, you are here for a fun time, not a long time, because things are going to change again on the local TV front.
Absolutely. That is Josh Nelson of Sox Machine. I'm Sean Anderson. We'll be back after a break here on the CHGO White Sox podcast to talk about possibly a 2026 budget, and then Roch Cholowsky, the UCLA superstar that hopefully will be a White Sox in 2026. I guess he'd officially be a Sox in 2026. We'll talk about it. We want to let you know about our friends over at Ray CDJR. New vehicles are in store at Ray, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, and this is your chance to score a great deal at the Drive Into Fall event. Head into Ray CDJR on Route 12 today to choose from their huge inventory of new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram vehicles. Right now, get up to $15,000 off MSRP or get 0% financing for 72 months on new 2025 models. Plus, shop over 125 vehicles priced under $20,000 with a friendly team of brand experts. The team at Ray CDJR is here to help you during each step of your car shopping journey. And since they prioritize affordability, you know you won't overpay for the next vehicle you need. With Ray's price promise, the price you see is the price you pay. So don't miss out on the Drive Into Fall event for huge savings on new models. For more information, visit raycdjr.today on Route 12 in Fox Lake or online at raycdjr.com. They've been serving the community since 1963. And irony is funny, CHSN is the official TV and streaming home of the Blackhawks, Bulls, and White Sox, broadcasting over 300 live games per year. CHSN offers the All Access plan for $29.99 a month that gives you access to all games and programming on the network, and individual team plans for $19.99 a month that gives you access to the games of the team that you select. So if you want a Bulls-only package, a Blackhawks-only select package, don't sign up for a White Sox package, I guess, right now because the games haven't started. But you can sign up to watch CHSN at CHSN.com, or you can watch via the CHSN app, which can be downloaded on Apple and Android devices, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and Samsung TV. CHSN is also available on Xfinity, DirecTV Stream, and Fubo. Visit CHSN.com for more details. Back here on the CHGO White Sox podcast, Josh, we just talked about it. CHSN plays a part into this next question. Where do you think the payroll budget will be for opening day? I think last year it was $65 million. Over under.
If I put the over under at $85.5 million, how would you feel?
I'm actually fine with 85 because what Bruce Levine said was, and I think this is what James, I didn't actually go back to listen to it, but James said, if they don't trade Luis Robert Jr., they'll have like $10 million to spend, which makes me think they'll spend around 50. So you're giving me around 35 more million than what I thought.
Yeah.
85 is okay.
You can be creative.
Yeah.
And with benefits and bonuses, etc. I think the White Sox are going to be surprised with the uncertainty of what will be happening in 2027 and the uncertainty with the local TV deal money, that some guys, some key free agents are going to have a tough time finding the deals that they want. And as free agency continues to pick up, like I could see the White Sox identifying key veterans like they did last year. Like they identified right away Austin Slater and Mike Tauchman. They wanted those guys. Mm-hmm. They signed them very quickly. We could see that again, but both of them cost no more than $4 million total to the payroll. But as the offseason progresses, somebody may become available. And chatting with Gene Watson, the director of player personnel at that podcast Row during the Fan Appreciation Day event at Wright Field, the White Sox right now are going through reports on every free agent and know they're not putting anyone into a pillar of they're too expensive. They're not considering money at this point. They're just trying to consider good fits. They'll discuss the money at a later time. So I could see a little bit more money being added to player payroll, but the White Sox are still far away from what a league average payroll looks like, which is about 125 to 130.
Right, and I'm glad Ryan jumped in with this comment. Pete Alonso, you're a Chicago White Sox. Probably not. I think that's a little bit too ahead of our skis, unless he's taking a big pay cut.
It would be great. Peter Alonso would really help with first base. You don't have to have the conversation of who's going to be the first baseman, Lenin Sosa or Miguel Vargas in 2026. It'd be great to add in the middle of the order. We'll see. But Gene's talked about it. Chris Getz has talked about it. The people we've talked about off the record within the White Sox, it's a familiar tone. Pitching. Pitching is a big focus for the White Sox this offseason.
So my ears shouldn't have perked up when I saw David Keller saying they finally hired a scout for Japan, and that I shouldn't connect it to Shingo Takatsu and Munetaka Murakami.
They're not ready yet, but as you can already tell with David Keller, I mean, the man's been busy. I mean, the White Sox are signing prospects for 2030.
Yeah. Braxton Braxter, what's his name?
From the Dominican Republic. So they've been busy, and they're willing to spend some serious cash internationally. That stuff will take 3 to 5 years to formulate for the White Sox. But this upcoming offseason, a lot of pitching. But as we've also learned in recent years, Sean, man, pitching is so expensive in the free agent market. So I'm curious to see on how the White Sox attack this.
Yeah, right. I mean, I was shocked that Matt Boyd got $15 million, and now he's starting game 1 for the Cubs. So
yeah, I mean, that seems
money
to
well
be
worth
the standard rate. Like 1 year deal for a veteran coming off Tommy John. You have experience. Boom, here's $15 million. Right. That's a tough pill to swallow for the White Sox.
That's why Martin Perez, even with the shoulder and elbow injuries, looks real nice. Any names on this list that you'd not have in bold? I have Edgar Caro, Chase Mydroth, Colson, Miguel Vargas, Benintendi, Robert, Teal, Corey Lee, Brooks Baldwin, Shane Smith, Davis Martin, Sean Burke, Vassal, Leisure, Taylor. In bold for 2025, 2026.
Corey Lee, we'll see.
Yeah, because he might get traded.
Corey Lee's out of options, and the White Sox are not carrying 3 catchers. I think we had a comment in the YouTube chat about what is the catching situation between Kyle Teal and Edgar Caro. This is a good question because I think you should bring both of them back. I thought that Will Venable did an excellent job of balancing playing time, but how does Chris Getz look at this opportunity? Because if a team needs catching help and he goes to Orlando in the winter meetings and he grabs a beer Monday night at the bar and he meets up with an assistant GM, they're like, hey, we kind of like Edgar Caro. We need some catching help. Would you be interested in talking? They talk. Mm-hmm. Maybe they come up with a way to trade Edgar Caro to help out on the pitching front, for example. So we'll see. I still vote bring them back. I think we need more time with Teal and Caro playing together to see if one is expendable in a trade as a rob Peter to pay Paul type of deal for the White Sox. But right now, Corey Lee is the one that I would put in question if he would be coming back.
Right, because, I mean, I was surprised that he wasn't dealt at the deadline. You saw Martin Maldonado catching for the Padres, and you look back to 2024, and Corey Lee took his job from the White Sox. So, that seemed like an easy upgrade, but they kept him in the organization. I did ask Gene Watson what he thought about Kyle Teal possibly picking up a different glove, whether that be left field or first base, to work him into the lineup a little bit more, and he seemed completely against it. I think it's more likely that Caro gets traded than Teal learns a new position or Caro learns a new position.
I agree with you. If one of them gets dealt, it's probably Edgar Caro, and the White Sox keeping Kyle Teal as their primary catcher. That's where I stand today. But I still think it's worthwhile to hold on to Edgar Caro for the 2026 season, give him another season, and see on how he progresses. And if he gets better, I mean, you could have like a Yasmani Grandal, James McCann catching situation that really worked out well for McCann. He signed a big deal with the New York Mets, and he ended up getting paid. But the White Sox still benefited having 2 quality catchers when most of the Major League Baseball doesn't even have 1 good catcher.
Right. And Grandal, could hit like a DH. Teal at points, just was really hitting well from the left side. Yeah. So I wouldn't hate seeing him at the DH spot. What did you make of Colson? I feel like it's a sin 38 minutes into this podcast, me not bringing up Colson Montgomery. Shocked is probably the word that everyone would use, but how else would you add on to what Colson did in 71 games?
Yeah, it broke my brain. It's talking to Gene Watson because he's been in the game for 25 years. Have you ever seen someone who's hit so much better in the major leagues than in AAA? And he's like, this is incredibly rare to see this. If you were not a believer in the torpedo bat, I mean, Colson Montgomery can easily make you a believer in the torpedo bat. Having a bat that's customized where your barrel placement is conducive to your swing. I mean, we see this in other sport, and the other sport is golf, and how much it helps professional golfers, especially driving out of the tee box, having a custom driver, whether you're a professional or an amateur. So the fact that the Colson Montgomery got that piece of lumber in his hand, working with what the White Sox have, like the trajectory machine, and having more coaches to help out, and just having an open mind. Like, that's the thing I'm impressed with Colson Montgomery, is that so many professional baseball players maybe would have ignored the advice from the White Sox, getting pulled out of a AAA season and sent back to the spring training facility to rework your swing. But he kept a good mind about it. He worked really hard. And when you hit 21 homers in 77 games, your imagination starts running wild. Like, do the White Sox suddenly have a 40 home run hitting shortstop, Sean?
Right.
Because if you do, wow, that drastically changes on how your team looks, because there's not many teams that have 40 home run shortstops.
Well, and then you look back at all the drafts, Caleb Bonheimer, and then you take Billy Carlson, and now with 27.7% odds to get the #1 overall pick, Roch Cholowsky is sitting there as the nation's best shortstop. Can you have too many shortstops?
No.
Like if Colson is this good, is he your shortstop no matter how good Bonheimer and Carlson are, because of the power hitting ability of an above average shortstop?
Well, we'll see defensively and injury as well. I mean, he is a very tall shortstop. And he proved that he was pretty decent at third base. I'm not married to the idea, nor should the White Sox be married to the idea, that Miguel Vargas is a long-term third baseman. Is he going to be the starting third baseman in 2026? Probably. And I say that with 80% confidence. Is he still that third baseman in 2027? I don't know. Billy Carlson might be the best defensive shortstop we've ever seen from the prep level. And that's not only coming from me, but that's coming from many professional scouts. We'll see what he does hitting-wise. But as you draft more shortstops, a college shortstop doesn't necessarily stick at the shortstop position. You can move them around.
Right.
And that level of the athleticism that Colson Montgomery has, you can move him around. So, no, I don't think it's a problem at all. And if you do have all these amazing shortstops, as we've seen with the San Diego Padres, trade deadline comes up, and if you are a believer in Colson Montgomery, but you need an impact player, man, excellent shortstops, especially in the minor leagues, that are ranked in the top 50, are the best currency in trades. So I say the White Sox should continue adding up the middle.
Yeah, all right. It's not a bad idea. And then when it comes to 2026, hopefully they get the #1 overall pick, the largest bonus slot, and can get Roch Cholowsky. What do you make of him? It's a great name to say.
Yeah, so I am a voter of the Dick Hauser Award, which is one of the best college player of the year awards. It's the Golden Spikes and the Dick Hauser. Those are the two. Roch was my vote. I thought he was the best college player last year, hitting 23 homers for UCLA and helping UCLA get to the College World Series. He will be the preseason #1 prospect, but as I have learned following the MLB draft and covering the MLB draft from a professional lens, the guy who's preseason #1 doesn't necessarily stay at #1. Rarely does that happen. What I will say about this upcoming MLB draft, this is a deep class on the position player front. These high school players are excellent. The college bats are excellent. This is maybe the most shallow pitching class I have ever seen in the first round. That is a huge concern in the upcoming MLB draft. Where are the pitchers? But if you need bats, and the White Sox desperately do need more bats, they have this opportunity. But I will add, since the introduction of the MLB draft lottery, the team that has had the best odds of getting the number one pick has yet to get the number one pick.
Which I think is good for the White Sox.
The team that's had the second best odds of getting the number one pick has yet to draft in the top 5. Okay, the MLB draft lottery has been absolute chaos. More chaotic than the NBA draft lottery. So even though the White Sox have a 27% odds of getting the number one pick, don't hold your breath. We'll learn more in the winter meetings in Orlando.
Right.
But they will get somebody quality, and it probably will be another shortstop.
And I thought a lot of grading Chris Getz was based on, can we see improvement, not even in the win-loss record. You still see 19-win improvement. I think just on the field, we saw a lot better play. So I was happy with that. And then just put yourself in the position to get that number one overall pick. The lottery balls are the lottery balls. Fate is fate.
Right.
No chance that they will get the number one overall pick. But I think still great job by Chris Getz putting this team in that position. Do you give him a above average of a? Do you give him a grade of a B or higher for 2025? Yeah,
Chris Getz.
How do you grade Getz?
Oh, that's a good question.
Even outside of where they end up falling in the draft, because they gave him the best odds.
I think a B is a good grade for Chris Getz. I mean, the return for Garrett Crochet is looking great right now for the White Sox. I mean, it's looking super great for the Boston Red Sox and how Crochet pitched for them this season. But I think for Chris Getz, I mean, obviously the job is not done. And I'm curious on how he views where the team stands heading into this offseason. Because I think one of the questions that I would love for him to answer, especially during the GM meetings in November, is, Chris, how do you view where you currently stand? Because the White Sox, you can either look at them and say the record is the record. They're 60 and 102. But math says you should have been a 71-win team. So how do you make up that gigantic gap? Because it's fair to say the Chicago White Sox were one of the biggest underachieving teams in Major League Baseball in 2025. How do you make that up? Because if you believe you're a 71-win team and you improve by 10 or more games, well, now all of a sudden you're 500 or better. Now you could be in contention for the American League Central or a playoff spot sooner than later. So that's where I'm curious on where Chris Getz's mind is heading to this offseason.
And back-to-back years in the AL Central show you if you have a good second half of the year, you can win the whole division.
Yeah, exactly.
So there you go.
You don't even need to be 500 at the trade deadline.
Exactly. Hey, update on Garrett Crochet. It is 1-0 Yankees. Volpe with the second inning homer, but 5 2/3 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 earned run, no walks, 8 Ks. That's an ace right there. Final question. How detrimental would it be for the Sox to fall in the draft? I think 1 through 3 is probably swallowable for White Sox fans, but is falling to 4 to 6 like worst case scenario? Could you even stomach 4?
No, it's not worst case scenario. I think there are 9 quality prospects in this upcoming draft class that would be in serious conversation to go number 1 overall in this past draft. I would say, you have Lombard, prep shortstop, and it's just not Roch Cholowsky. It's Justin LeBron. It's Tyler Black. It's AJ Garcia. It's Drew Burris. It's Derek Carrell out of LSU. Like, this is one of the most impressive college position player classes that we have seen in a few years. And I'm really excited for college baseball. I think this is going to be a very competitive and intense year, which would be great for ratings. And for MLB Draft fans, more opportunities to watch them because it's really hard to see guys in the prep level. So I don't think it's detrimental at all. Would it be the end of the world if the Minnesota Twins ended up getting the number 1 pick and the White Sox getting the number 2 pick? I could hear some groans, and that is a real possibility. But no matter what, in this upcoming draft, the White Sox are going to get a quality player.
I think I could stomach Twins being at 1, us being at 2. It'd just be Twins at 1, us at 6. That would really probably
Well, the good news,
get me
if
miffed.
you're at 6, you can get back in the top 5 the next year if you're still bad. Or
I thought
7.
it was top 6. Yeah.
If you're like 7, I should say,
right.
then you could still be. You could still win the lottery the next season. You could avoid what's going on with the Rockies right now.
Right. I think, though, that they're not able to. I think that's why their odds are higher at 27 is because the Rockies
and Nationals
Angels,
dropped.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's sticky. Josh does a great job covering college baseball for Sox Machine. I hate that you guys all have the first letter of J because I always confuse Josh, Jim.
We're the Flying J, the
yes.
Triple J. Yeah.
Josh, Jim, and James. They do a great job over at Sox Machine. Make sure you go support them over at SoxMachine.com. That is Josh Nelson. I'm Sean Anderson. Thank you for watching the CHGO White Sox podcast. We'll have a show at 5:30 on Thursday. Thank you to Joey Christopoulos for producing the show, and we will see you on Thursday. Goodbye.
We all silly like the mayor.